Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Healthy Innovators. My name is Barry Schreier, and I'm your host tonight. Thank you very much for joining us. As you know, every week we bring together a group of very talented and motivated and passionate people who are all involved in healthcare technology innovation. This program is sponsored by Giant Health, which is a global community of many tens of thousands of people who are all active in healthcare technology innovation, and Giant Health brings them together to help them promoting their businesses, their products, and their services. Once a year we run the Giant Health event in November here in London, and we invite you to come and join us. So our vision is to improve the health and the well-being of people around the world by promoting innovation in healthcare and supporting health tech entrepreneurs. So tonight I'm very, very pleased and humbled to be joined by some fabulous people. Jim and Canada and Yinka and Rob, thank you very much for coming along tonight. Really, really nice to see you guys, and we're grateful for you joining us. The format for tonight is, what we're going to do is ask everybody to introduce themselves briefly. We're then going to talk about some of the leading issues in the world of healthcare and how innovations in tech can help us to address these issues. At the end of the show, we're just going to spend a few minutes sharing our visions of the future and what we can do to make the world a better place. So stick with us, and thank you very much for being part of today's episode. What we'll do is we'll go around the room and just introduce ourselves. So Rob, please. Hello.
Hi. Rob Parks. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a new business, a startup business called Service Robotics. Service Robotics has a mantra really to bring the benefits of robotics into the lives of ordinary people. We all know that robots are coming,
Yes.
but there are very few examples of where they're meaningfully deployed to improve people's lives. Our first project and only project at the moment is a service platform that is designed to use robotics to bring the benefits of companionship and connectivity to the older adults of the UK.
Nice.
And why are we doing that? We're doing that because we believe the older adults of the UK are one of the forgotten demographics in terms of technology.
Okay.
Technology, you hear the phrase digital natives all the time, and the truth of the matter is that the natives are analog. The older adults of the UK have not grown up with technology,
Yes.
and every development that you see in technology is really aimed at those who are already conversant with it.
Yes.
So
we can develop that further in the discussion, but that's very interesting, and I'd love to learn more about that as we go on tonight.
Yeah. Okay.
Excellent, thank you. So Yinka, hello.
Hello.
Good to see you, thanks for coming.
Thank you very much. So I'm Yinka McKinday. I'm the Programme Director of something called digitalhealth.london, which is a pan-London collaboration of four main organisations, NHS-funded organisations. And really what we're here to do is to match innovations with NHS need, known NHS need.
Right.
We're here to equip NHS colleagues with the tools that will enable them to deliver better healthcare and better outcomes to patients.
Excellent.
We're famously known for an accelerator, but we do quite a lot of other things in addition to the accelerator.
Excellent.
Both on the innovator side and on the NHS side.
Oh, good. Well, we want to hear a lot more about that. So in particular, you said helping with NHS needs, I think.
Yes.
And so later on, please, let's have a little bit of more of a definition of that.
Absolutely.
So our audience understands that.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Canada, hello.
Hello, Barry. Hi.
Thanks for coming.
Very pleased to be here. I'm a visiting researcher and lecturer at the University of Westminster, focusing on communication in healthcare, and I also have a consultancy, Studio Health.
Excellent.
So my area is really thinking about how we can improve communication to improve patient outcomes. We've all got stories ourselves, family, friends, of people who've had that clinical encounter and have left it without exactly what they needed in order to be able to activate themselves and to look after their care.
Oh, right.
But
which is in part due to challenges of communication?
Yes, exactly. So even if you have the diagnostics right, the treatment right, if the communication isn't correct, the patient may not be able to look after themselves following that.
I understand.
And we know that people have their interaction with the healthcare system, those are so infrequent, those touch points
Sure.
throughout a year, let alone the length of a chronic disease. It's really
Right.
important that those moments are able to be carried forward by the patient whilst they look after themselves. But it's a very big area, so I guess
Excellent.
there are two particular bits that I'm interested in. Health literacy,
Right.
so that set of skills that we need to look after our health. And the second area is empathy. That's
Oh.
a fascinating area
Yes.
about how we build that therapeutic alliance, but also how we use empathy to better understand the user experience, because that allows innovation.
Interesting. Oh, excellent. So empathy and therapeutic alliance.
Yes.
Let's develop that further in the discussion later on, because I'm not sure if I understand those fully, and it'd be helpful for our viewers
Thank
to
you,
learn more
Barry.
about those things. Yeah, thanks for coming. And hello, Jim.
Hello, Barry. I'm a designer by profession, an industrial designer. So that means I design physical things, typically mass-produced, often technology. As a designer, I claim to be very empathetic. As a personality, I have no sympathy.
Oh,
So I'm very good on empathy and very bad on sympathy. So I designed consumer products for 15 years and then made a slightly strange career decision about 15 years ago to move into healthcare, and was MD of a specialist design firm who had, by then, for about 15 years, been working in healthcare, in technology development. So some of the sort of more consumer-focused things we worked on were things like Clearblue pregnancy test, which we
Okay.
developed with Unilever.
oh, nice.
At the other end, we were doing minimally invasive aortic valve replacement.
Wow.
And then at the same time, doing research on the effect of changing society, demographics, work patterns, our approach to family, and what impact that would have on primary healthcare. So, and then more recently, I've just got very frustrated. I'm an angry middle-aged man, and I'm trying to...
You need a Harley.
yeah, no, well, no. And I'm trying to trying to offer an alternative paradigm to innovation,
Oh, okay.
which obviously the technology within healthcare is very relevant to that.
Yes, an alternative paradigm.
Yes, I can
Yeah.
explain more if we get to it.
Sure.
But
Yeah, no, I'd love to hear more about that
Yeah.
later on.
Pleasure.
Good. Well, again, welcome.
Thank you.
And thanks so much to be with us tonight. So you were talking briefly about aging, I guess. For the sake of argument, what is the issue with aging and health?
Well, I don't think it's going to come as a surprise to anybody if I say that our population is getting older,
Yes.
and there are far more people over the age of 65 living alone than there ever used to be. There are over
Right.
3.6 million
Right.
of those people in the UK.
So as a portion of the total population,
It's
the
going
number
up.
of elderly people is a bigger part of the
Yes.
overall pie now,
Yes.
and getting larger.
So it's not just the elderly
Right.
thing, it's the involuntarily single, as I would call it. So
Okay.
people, as they get older, are forced to live on their own.
Sure.
So their whole healthcare surroundings, and when I say healthcare, I don't just mean physical health, I mean mental health as well. For example, loneliness is one of the big problems that we hope to be able to address, but also physical health in terms of monitoring and creating a safe environment and doing wonderful things with sensors that are available, and
Yes.
maybe thinking of them as a smart home kind of setup that
Oh, okay.
through something such as a companion robot you can do really useful things with.
Right. So your company makes a product which can go into the home of a involuntarily single person.
Yes,
And what does it do?
Well, so the solution that we are piloting shortly is called Genie Connect. It consists of a companion robot called Genie, which has an artificially intelligent cloud-based software solution, so that the robot itself can talk to you and have quite a cheeky conversation, actually, in the
Right.
sense that they don't always say what you think they're going to say.
Oh, okay.
So a little bit more than just a interrogative voice-activated system,
Right.
such as those that we see.
Unlike the health apps, which just say what's your problem, and
Yes,
it drills down decision
indeed.
trees based on symptoms.
A brief example, if you ask Jeannie to do too much mental arithmetic, she'll tell you to use a calculator. There is a personality there.
Yes.
However, I think we're all aware that, especially when it comes to empathy, that robotics isn't perhaps the universal choice for loneliness in that people need human contact as well.
Oh, okay.
So behind our solution is a service center. So the
Right.
user of the companion robot can actually, using a voice command, ask Genie to call a service center.
Right.
And on the screen of the robot, you'll have a two-way video conference with a service operative.
That's excellent. Like I said, in a future
Yeah.
episode, please bring one along.
Yes.
And we'd love to see that.
I'd love to, yeah.
What's the issue in terms of empathy and, for example, technology? I mean, is there an issue?
It's a very interesting area. So first I would say I think it's always useful to think of when someone is experiencing an illness, to think about it in this biopsychosocial piece. So when we think about it from a health psychology perspective.
Biopsychosocial.
No, but it's exactly what Rob is saying.
Okay.
So being isolated can be as bad for you as having, you know, a heart condition. So I think it's very interesting that what you're looking at in terms of your service combines those different things. So it's not just a biomedical approach, but you're looking at alleviating perhaps some of the psychological impacts, as well as enhancing the social networks.
Yes.
So that was what I was saying by the biopsychosocial piece, using that terminology we have in health psychology a bit.
Excellent.
But I guess the question you asked me, Barry, was around the empathy piece.
Yeah.
And it is interesting. Empathy, I've just spent a little bit of time deep in the literature about it for a study we've just completed at Westminster.
Oh, interesting.
And it is quite a contested term in lots of different areas of literature, because empathy is important in different parts of science and the social sciences.
Right.
But we do know that people are able to create connections with a digital interface. And we see that more originally perhaps back in Second World. That was a very interesting area, wasn't it? And there were some very successful health interventions that were delivered there. I remember some great work in Glasgow, I think, where they were looking at supporting people with post-traumatic stress disorder within the Second World, and people found it much easier to make some of those connections when they were outside of their quote-unquote real world.
Well, that's
so there are some
interesting.
really good examples, but there are also examples, because of course it is a contested area, where we see that empathetic mirroring is sometimes the term that's used, where that isn't successful. So I think we still have a great deal to learn. It will be very interesting with your work, Rob, to see what you learn, particularly amongst that slightly older population. And I think one of the opportunities that technology offers us, isn't it, is to really personalise services. And I think we've got a lot to learn still about how we embrace those personal preferences, those individual differences, and really challenge technology to deliver that.
Yes, exactly. No, it's absolutely fascinating and exciting times we're living in. Does this relate a little bit to some of the things Digital Health.London are doing?
It does, although I have to say that many of the companies that we've been working with over the last 2 years, so we've been in operation just over 2 years, we haven't met with a lot of similar companies to you, actually. So,
are they mainly gadget makers?
No, as in dealing with the problem that you're trying to deal with.
Oh, okay.
So obviously, we deal with a lot of app developers. But the area of sort of, I don't know what we'd call it, health care in the home, and it crosses over with social care as well.
Sure.
Which is a growing area. We haven't directly supported as many companies in that field.
Oh, okay.
One of the things that I will sort of challenge, though, is this theory that elderly people or people of the older generation are not necessarily as tech savvy as their younger generation counterparts.
Interesting, because that's the big urban myth, isn't it?
It is
that your granny can't use WhatsApp or whatever.
But I think there is some research out there that suggests that that's not entirely true.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Maybe they just have nicer priorities than liking their friends on Facebook all day long. You don't know, do you?
They're using different things.
Yes.
They may not be using Facebook. They may be using other much more simple apps. But actually, they're not as technophobic as we might think they are.
Yeah.
I think the idea that we're trying to pursue is the use of technology to reach people we're not reaching, and instead of expecting people, whether they be older adults or any other demographic, to use a smartphone. An app isn't the answer if you can't or don't want to use a smartphone, or there's something that prevents you from using it. So using technology more to open up the world of possibilities to people who have different needs than perhaps we perceive the masses having.
Yes.
Yeah.
And maybe using devices that are more they're more sort of connected to. So, for example, we came across a company called Hello Daisy, which is delivering a solution through technology, but actually using the television to
Excellent.
do it, rather than an app or a a tablet device.
Because absolutely everybody has a TV
Yeah,
at home.
everyone has a TV.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Hello Daisy.
Hello Daisy.
What
yeah.
do they do? Is it a set-top box?
It is a set-top box, but they use that to. I think their sort of technology is about creating a social network for people of the older generation.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, from my perspective as a designer, people aren't really that bothered about the technology. So I don't think people will buy the service because of the technology per se. They buy it because of the service that you're offering or the experience that they get. And this is being filmed. Nobody's really interested in the technology that's being used to film this, or even the technology they're watching it on. They're interested in the conversation that we're having, I hope. So it's always a bit of this sort of strange paradox that we, in developing new things, we focus on the technology.
Yes.
And we almost to the point of obsession. But the people that, if you like, our customers or patients or whoever we're building things for, couldn't care less.
Yeah.
Because they're looking for a solution to a problem they have.
Yeah, or they're just looking for a good experience or a happier life or whatever it is, or to ease their guilt.
Yes.
So maybe people, Rob, for your service are buying it. In football, you have the WAGs, the wives and girlfriends. Probably can't say that anymore, actually.
Okay.
But
Go ahead and say it.
In elderly care, you have WAGs, which is the worried and guilty. So
Yes.
a few years ago, we were working with Proteus Biomedical, who are the company that embed the microchip into the pharmaceutical.
Okay.
A huge.
For digestibles.
So
the pill with a chip in it.
Pill with a chip in,
Okay.
so the acid in the battery wakes up the chip, so the chip can then just get enough energy out of that effectively stomach battery to say hi to a little body-worn patch, which has also got sensor technology and 3-axis accelerometer.
Oh, very interesting.
And but one of the early markets was the worried and guilty. It's the people that say, actually, I can't get to see my elderly relative quite as much.
Yeah.
So maybe if I buy this thing, they can use it. It will help their life. But actually, part of the purchase motivation makes me feel a bit less guilty.
Yeah.
Yes. Which is fine, isn't it?
If everyone's happy, it's fine.
Yeah. Can I just pick? Sorry, I was just going to pick up on your point about we don't care about the technology. We're absolutely right, we don't care about the technology, and that's why our mantra at digitalhealth.london is problem first. Like,
Right.
what is the problem you're actually trying to solve with this thing?
I would
Instead
challenge
of-
that even.
Instead of the technology looking for a solution, the
there's
famous...
too many solutions looking for a problem to
Yes.
solve.
Yeah.
Start from the
Problem
basics.
first.
What is the problem that you're trying to solve?
And does that fit? I'm sorry, Candida, were you going to
No, you were going to challenge that.
This new paradigm of innovation is actually solution first.
Okay. Is it the same as problem
No,
first?
it's different.
Okay.
But it's not as dramatically different as you think.
Okay.
Okay.
What about user first? So is there not, I'm stepping a little bit into your territory here, but one of the interesting things about empathy and having that really enhanced understanding of someone's perspective is that user empathy can drive fantastic innovation in the design process. How does that fit with the...
Well, it fits, but that user is still going to be defining what is the challenge that they're having
The problem.
the problem.
The issue for them.
They're still going to help define.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do they not know the problem?
So that's how we're doing it. So that's the perceived wisdom at the moment.
Yes.
Right. Is find the user, find the so-called use case.
Find the problem, find the user,
Yeah.
engage them in the process, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Really drill down. In fact, if you look at some of the process diagrams of sort of tech innovation, as it were,
Yes.
there's equal proportion of know your problem as come up with a solution. I don't know whether you do crosswords. But you could do the
Badly.
crosswords, and you may have done the crossword on the Evening Standard last night on the way home. You may have struggled with one. On the way home tonight, you can get the paper and you can go straight to the solution for last night's, and you go, I now see the problem. Solutions expose problems very, very effectively. You can focus on a problem and never really fully understand it.
Okay.
If you propose the solution, now to your point, in a sense, what about users? Well, as a designer, if we're not got it right for the users, it's not a solution.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I don't think you can go in with a blank
aligned.
sheet of paper though. So you can't go in with a problem if the group of people that you're trying to work with hasn't done a little bit of initial thinking on what they think the problem is. And then you can challenge them with a multitude of solutions, but you've got to have something.
Putting a stake in the ground.
That's the way it's done. It's not the way I'm doing it.
Yeah.
But for the sake of argument, Jim, help me to understand this. Apparently, the global president of AT&T, at the time in 1979, the largest telephone company in the world, said famously, absolutely nobody would want to walk down the pavement listening to music. And that was his criticism of the first kind of pre-Sony Walkman things. So were people creating solutions to unknown problems there, or did that guy just not even understand the environment and the possible solutions to theoretical problems which people did not discuss?
I think a lot of creating the future is not about solving problems.
Oh, okay.
It's about creating a future. And the future isn't just about dealing with the past.
Yes.
So
it's not just identifying problems.
So there was no market for an iPad.
No.
In fact, the analyst told Steve Jobs not to develop it, I understand, because you would jeopardize your smartphone and your laptop markets.
Okay.
And I'm imagining Steve Jobs said something like, you can't measure how much people are going to want this thing once we deliver it.
Yes. Interesting.
It wasn't
How
a
does
problem.
that filter into healthcare? Do you have a anecdote or a story in terms of this solution-led approach which you can share with us?
A short one. A short one is childhood obesity.
Okay.
And so I was asked to give a chat to the Jamie Oliver Food Foundation about childhood obesity. I think they were expecting a talk about facts and figures. And I wasn't going to do that. So I decided to see if I could propose a solution.
Nice.
The irony is we haven't actually presented it to them because everything got a bit distracted, but everybody else really loves the solution. So Department of Health, NHS England, Public Health England, Southwark Council, so on and so forth. So we're now going to start to implement that solution.
Oh, fabulous.
The interesting thing is nobody asked us how we arrived at the solution.
Can I ask a question?
Can you tell us what the solution is?
We're going to out chicken shops.
Okay.
It's a national thing called Cook and Stay. It's a long story. People are actually going to be cooking, creating. You stay and eat in there. We're shifting the whole culture around eating back to the table. We're doing education through creation, which is lost in education a lot at the moment. There is no creativity. And so a core part of all of our education comes in creativity. When you create things, you learn.
Yes. So. Fabulous. Oh, how exciting. Congratulations.
Oh, well.
No, I'd love to hear more about that. I'm sorry, were you going to...
I was just going to ask, so that's a consumer-led, so that's a consumer-facing solution, right? So do you think it would be a different case if you were using the same approach but having to sell it into an acute trust or a mental health trust?
So another one is we were asked to look at increasing the use of interventional radiological procedure within the healthcare system. We have a solution to that. Bizarrely, that we're actually contracted into a pharmaceutical company for that one, so I should probably, just because we're live, not do too much. But at the moment, I've just come from a meeting with one of the biomedical research centres about building this thing internally there. It took 10 minutes.
Excellent. Love to hear more about that in the next episode.
I think the process of starting with a problem and figuring out how you're going to address it and arriving at a solution means that quite often the solution you end up with isn't the one you imagined you'd end up with at the beginning. And I think that's really what we're talking about, that sometimes, for example, in robotics, you end up with a solution that does something that nobody realized they needed. But when you gave it to them, they did realize they needed it.
So it wasn't dreamed by the engineers and crafted.
So it's about starting something that you know has got the potential to solve a problem that you know about, but then dreaming about how that can be developed into using new technologies into something that people don't know they need yet.
Yes.
And the other way of looking at that is that there's a considerable amount of money that we know entrepreneurs burn at high rate on developing solutions that they think there's a problem for.
Are needed.
So actually, if they just use that slightly different approach, call it co-design, co-production, whatever, hopefully that's going to save them a bit of money, because hopefully the product that they'll come out with is more likely, as Rob says, more likely to be solving the problem than something that they thought, that they imagined in a garage.
That's the lean startup kind of getting to plan B concept, isn't it? Or not?
Partly, yes. How do
in
we...
other words, try stuff sooner instead of spending more energy making stuff and then trying it.
But do it with your end customer.
Yes.
And I think that's sound advice no matter what sector you're working in.
Really?
Yes.
Jim's going to disagree.
I disagree. My understanding is Apple don't.
Yeah.
So when Johnny Ive in London 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago was asked by Sir Christopher Frayling, who was then the rector of the Royal College of Art, how does Apple engage the users in the creative process? He said, we don't. And Frayling said something like, do you not care about your users? I'm passionate about my users. I'm a designer. Every moment of the day, if you like, it is my obsession to know my users.
But not talk to them?
To know them.
Not hold
to know them.
Yes.
To know, oh, you've got to know them. You've got to have empathy with them.
Have that absolutely.
But that doesn't necessarily mean directly talking with them. It doesn't necessarily mean co-creating with them.
No. Could one argue that that's an exception that proves the rule? There's perhaps some unbelievable, unusual geniuses in the world, the Stephen Jobses and the Johnny Ives of the world, 1 in 10 billion or whatever. And that approach, albeit unbelievably successful and artful, maybe isn't universally applicable to all the mortals running little startups and SMEs around the world. I don't know. But
my understanding is that there are far more geniuses than we realize.
Understood.
We just ignore them.
I follow, yeah. We're going to have to wrap up in a few minutes, by the way, but I'm loving this discussion. So if you guys don't mind, maybe we could just go around the room and help us to understand what some of your views are and visions of the future. Do you have a product or a service or an issue in healthcare which you're passionate about, and what would you like to see happen in the next few years or in the distant future, whatever. So Yinka, please, anything you'd like to contribute?
So one of the things that we're working on at digitalhealth.london at the moment is actually enabling people working in the system to be better able to adopt this stuff, right? So if we don't have people in the system who can actually work with the technology, interface with the suppliers, understand the language, understand the mentalities, we're going to struggle.
Yes.
And so I would like to see over the next few years, and I know work is already happening, starting with this at NHS England level, at Health Education England level, to empower the workforce to feel more confident around technology.
Excellent.
At multiple layers. So it's not just about CIOs and CCIOs and people at the exec board level.
Right.
It's actually people on the ground floor.
Yes.
The frontline staff.
Yes.
Feeling more empowered also to try things out.
Right.
And to fail as well.
Yes.
So that's what I would like to see more of over the next few years.
Yes. Yeah, that sounds fabulous, and I certainly subscribe to that as well. Yeah, Rob, please, any
just to circle back on some of the things we've been discussing, for me, we're passionate about using technology to help people who don't use technology.
Okay.
So I love this idea of technology transparency. You know, we are solving problems, but when you have a solution, you know, you can argue that a robot is quite obvious, so it's not a transparent technology, but if you can just talk to it and ask it to help you in the same way as you would another human, then the voice recognition, the voice synthesis, the artificial intelligence, that's all completely transparent.
It kind of disappears into the environment.
Instead of expecting those people to pick up a smartphone and use an app which will help them, they don't want to do that. So let's find another way of using technology in a transparent way to bring them benefits that they otherwise wouldn't get.
Excellent. Beyond the app, so to speak.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fabulous. Looking forward to that future. Jim, please.
My vision of the future is we spend far less money solving far more problems. And for the good of civilization, I mean, it's as grand as that.
Yes.
Because healthcare is at the core of civilization. We've got to be healthy. And to do that, we need to be able to get technology into the market faster. And so what's underpinning a lot of what I'm doing is to create this new paradigm where that's much more efficient.
Yes.
And one way you could argue is around co-creation and things, but it's not the way we're doing it. So
yes.
And it's not to say one's right or wrong. It's to say I think we need a few alternatives.
Well,
because
absolutely.
we're putting all of our effort into a single pipe at the moment. which is a little bit short-sighted, I think.
Yes. No, it's great to see alternative approaches and innovations in innovation.
Well, quite.
Which is excellent.
It's tough.
Meta-innovation. Good, but thank you for sharing that.
Pleasure.
And that's beautiful. So, yeah, Candida.
I think we're coming at the same issue from slightly different perspectives, which
Right.
is it's about using technology to reach the people that we're not currently reaching.
Right.
And for me, that's really the great opportunity. So we do have these big, as you say, big problems for our world, and a lot of that from a health perspective is about this inequality. And I think what is really important for our technical innovation is that we're not reaching the same people differently, we're reaching a new group of people.
Right.
And I think for me that is the challenge, and we need to recognise and understand how best to partner with them. So people find health very complicated.
Absolutely.
We expect too much of people when they interact with our health service, not because they're stupid, but because it is a time of great anxiety, it's a new language, there's an enormous amount of complexity there. And that means that people are not able to engage with us.
Yes.
And
yes,
that
exactly.
means that the patient does not do well. There is not this good outcome.
It's a good
And for
point.
me, that's what it's about. It's about how can we, you know, adjusting our population and educating them is a longer term, an important goal, but a much longer term one. So short term, how can we challenge ourselves to make our services better fit the population that
It's
we're
a
not
very good
connecting
point.
with?
Yeah, absolutely. This keeps telling me to breathe every hour. So I think we do have a little way to go, don't we? I didn't realize that was a problem of mine, but now I know. But how nice to see you guys. And Rob, Yinka, obviously Jim, and Candida, thank you so much for joining us. And good luck with all of your ventures. And we hope to obviously be able to support everything that you guys are doing on an ongoing basis. So don't be shy, and let's continue sharing all of this information and the good work that you're doing. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you once again for watching tonight's episode of Healthy Innovators. My name is Barry Schreier, and I'm the founder of Giant Health. Giant is a global platform promoting innovation in healthcare, bringing together all sorts of incredibly talented and motivated people and helping them, we hope, with their journeys. So we hope you found this interesting. Don't forget to support us and promote this amongst your networks, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thank you very much.